in the city? Is it maintained by the city, or, you know?
Or is it county property that sits on, so therefore, it's kind of like the VA property over there, is you're on federal property when
Right.
you're there. You're subject to their police department.
I am far enough away from everybody, and Renee always tells me I don't have to wear it.
I had,
Okay.
family shame and, fear of not being able to see my grandchildren cause me to wear it.
Mm-hmm.
But I go on their website, it shows that I haven't confirmed appointment.
Okay, good.
We'll see.
The interesting thing is that, both of the shots have had some effect on me.
Debbie, will you look to make sure we're all?
I didn't sleep this weekend very good at all. I was having really strange nightmares and all kinds of
Oh,
stuff. I don't know if it had anything to do with it, but, definitely odd.
sometimes medications can cause
Here we
weird
are. Okay.
dreams.
Is the audio, can you hear us on the audio? Okay,
Yep.
perfect, okay.
I guess I better shut up.
We don't wanna. Did you get your shot at the VA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
My dad's had his second one, and now he is, wanting to go places. He's a big fisherman, so he's headed out to all these fishing places and wants us to come down and visit and everything, so.
Yeah.
So we'll soon be able to do all that.
Good. Well,
Fishing was probably something he could have done all along.
He had been doing the fishing and everything, because it is an individual thing, but, he would always make sure, like, he would go and not go into a store, you know, except for the stores that sold his flies and all of that, you know. He made exception for those places, so, but yeah.
Of the agenda, or did I give you a copy of the minutes? Okay. No, that's the minutes.
From the last
Thank you.
If you email me the file, when I get settled at home this evening, I'll type it.
Okay,
While it's fresh in my head.
I can do that. In fact, forget, because I had to email it from my from the computer to my personal email, then to the county
Oh my
email.
gosh. Yeah, just email it to my personal
Stick it
email,
up there.
and I'll type them up and have them ready.
how many copies of these types of, sample ballots and all that stuff do we do for each election?
So, for a general election, the commission will approve their set of them, and that I will bring in ballot styles, so the similar ballots.
Mm-hmm.
So for the primary, that was what, 90 ballots out of 200 and something precincts, times 3, because each got 3. So that's quite a few, but we have to provide 2 sets of sample ballots at each polling location. And so we spend probably $3,000 to $4,000 just printing sample ballots for elections, for the big ones. So, yeah,
Forests are still endangered.
yeah. So, yeah, so, and we have, like, basically they go out in big notebooks like this, organized, by ballot style and precinct lists and everything like that. So it's a task
Yeah.
to put it all together, even though we put the sample ballots on voter view, so voters can
Sure.
access their own sample ballot, but then I put all the ballot styles on our county website, and I started doing that for the media more so than anyone else, because they would call and want to look at a sample ballot, and they would only be able to look at their own if they went to voter view. So this way, they would have a set of all the sample ballots.
Right.
And we do that as well.
When you say ballot styles, help me understand what that means.
So there are precincts, so we have all the precincts.
Mm-hmm.
But some precincts will have the same ballot, same races and issues on it as another precinct. And so then that's when we refer to it as a ballot style.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And it's because more than one precinct has the same, basically the same ballot,
Mhm.
with the same names and
Right.
issues.
And sometimes that happens, like, for instance, if you don't have a JP race,
Yeah.
and that JP race was the difference between those two precincts, and they're running unopposed, so their name doesn't go on the ballot, so then you have the ballots that are similar. So, yeah, and so then we break it down, we combine them by style, so we don't have to print as many ballots when we send them out to the polling locations. And especially for, like, the primary election, where you have a lot of uncontested races, it makes your precincts more alike than different, so.
Yeah. Thank you. That's good.
For instance, the school ballots that we have, these are by style and not necessarily by precinct.
So the school, because the school ballots tend to have similar information.
Right, so for instance, for the school ballots, there are 27 ballot styles. If we did precincts, we would have 235 different ballots.
Okay.
And so, this one is by ballot style.
Okay.
Especially, like, for instance, in Springdale, only Zone 1 had a contested race. So Zone 2, 3, 4, and 5, their ballots all look exactly the same. And so that prevents us from having all of those individual precincts that you don't necessarily have to have for a school.
Okay. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I had to go get him. I had to get him. That's why I'm late.
How you doing, Jim?
How you doing?
Actually, you're an hour early.
Oh, yeah.
Are we good? Yes.
Hi. Y'all, I'm sorry, I was just telling Max these afternoon meetings are gonna be the death of me. But
Sorry.
that's all right. I guess we'll have to find a way to re-retire Jim. Okay.
Well, I'm in my retirement duds today.
Nothing wrong with that.
Retirement uniform?
Yeah.
Just make sure you retire. Okay, meeting is called to order.
Do we need to start this?
It is. Oh, yeah, you can go ahead and just hit start, but I think it's already started, but yeah.
Yeah, it is. Oh,
No, it's not, there's no delay on it right now.
okay.
Yep.
What, are they afraid I'm gonna cuss or something?
It's automatic. I Googled that because I
Oh,
was
you
like,
wondered,
why is
yeah.
it? And it is actually,
Yeah, well, that's good to know.
so I thought I did something wrong.
Okay, well, let's start with the minutes from the previous meeting. Have y'all had a chance to look at those?
Is it just this one set?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim, you got any changes or additions?
No,
All right, well, we'll accept the minutes as presented, and we will go on to approved ballots for the May 18th, 2020 annual school election, and that's what this
Yes.
pile is.
So this is, a ballot style for each of the school districts, and then, of course, the schools that have zones, there's a ballot style for that zone as well. I have sent, Springdale and Elkins, which are having the millage restructure. I have sent this information to Beardsley, that they prepare the ballot language for us to put on the
Right.
ballot, for their approval and for their attorney to review that, and I've gotten approval back from those. And then we've sent off all the other ballots to each of the individual school districts for them to send back their approval to make sure we have their millage correct, and everything, and so we've gotten those approvals back from those, school districts as well.
And the Elkins and the Springdale look like they're only only two ones that have more than one page to them. or
Yes,
one view.
on the express vote, because the language is longer, they will have to go to the second page in order
To
to
vote.
actually vote.
Yeah.
But the express vote is set up so that they can't skip it.
Oh, good.
You know, it
Okay.
asks them, are
Yeah.
you sure, you want to? Now, this is a smaller ballot, so there's not a lot of
Well, what
other
they need to
pages.
say is, why did you come to the polls if you don't want to vote?
Right, so, but yeah, so Elkins and Springdale are the only two that would be a two-page on the express vote.
All right. So, all of the language is language that was provided to you by the various school districts.
That is correct. So each of the school districts, I send, to them basically a copy of the ballot language, and for them to put in the exact numbers that we need for their millage.
Oh, yeah.
And so they send that back to us, and then I've had 3 different individuals proof the ballot language, but then we also send it to the school districts for them to approve and send back approval for us as well. And then the candidate names, the spelling of the candidate names is certified to us from the county clerk's office. We place that on the ballot, and then, like I said, we've had 3 individuals proof the candidate names as well.
Perfect. All right, I suppose all we need to do is entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve these ballots as presented.
second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the ballots are approved. I assume you've already gotten word back from all of the school districts.
Yes,
Okay.
so, and then basically what I do is I keep a binder for the school district, and we send out, this is what I was looking for, I send out this to each of the school districts for them to fill in.
Gotcha.
It has exact language that it's gonna be, and then they fill in the numbers.
Mhm.
And then, I send the copy of the ballot to each of the school districts asking for their approval. I print out their
Yeah.
response
Oh, good, yeah.
back to us,
Yeah.
and then I keep that,
Okay.
with their ballot
That's
style.
basically what I was asking, to
Yes.
make sure that we've got, that they've looked at the ballot
Yes.
and that there's no problem from that standpoint. Okay, so the ballots have been approved for the May 18th election, vote center locations for that election.
So, early and absentee voting will be Farmington, Greenland, Lincoln, Prairie Grove, West Fork, and Siloam Springs.
Okay.
All of those school districts are required to submit to the election commission, and we file with the county clerk's office a resolution authorizing us to do early and absentee voting only. And so, that's never an issue because they don't want to open up a polling location because that's an extra cost. I am waiting on some of those resolutions just because their school boards are meeting next week or the following week. They have 30 days until the election to get those into the county clerk's office, but I will follow up and make sure that they all do. But we've gotten some of them back already, and like I said, the other ones, their school boards have to meet to sign that resolution. So those would be early and absentee voting only. Then Elkins Community Center, I would request that we open that. That is in the Elkins School District. They're doing the restructuring of their millage. And in Fayetteville Public Schools, we're also required for school elections to consult with the school districts on the polling locations that we are to open. So I had contacted both Fayetteville and Springdale School Districts to give them a list of the polling locations that we were looking at, and told them about the meeting today, that we would be discussing this, and both of them, sent back, this looks good or okay, so. So for Fayetteville, we've gotten confirmation that all of these locations would be available to be open.
We're talking 7 locations.
It actually would end up being 8.
Okay.
We'll add Genesis in.
Okay.
So it would be Covenant Church. And so this is for you to decide. I mean, you can vote on it as a whole or as individuals, but the suggested locations from last meeting were Covenant Church, St. Avenue Church, Central United Methodist, Sequoia Methodist, Trinity Fellowship, Baldwin Church, Goshen, and Genesis. So that would be 8 locations for us to have open. These were the suggested locations from the previous meeting, and locations that we've opened for previous school elections.
Okay. Well, let's start with the Elkins, and we'll just have a motion on that.
Okay.
All in favor of the Elkins Community Center being open?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? No. Let's approve that first. Fayetteville, we did discuss this last time, and you suggested going with the Genesis.
Yeah, I think
And-
it's good to have it in.
I think that's a good choice, 1, 2. Essentially, we've got only in, well, it's a little hard to tell, but it looks like D5 only has 1, but it has, in D2, real close. So, well, I mean, maybe D3 only has 1, too, and D4. My bad. But I mean, they're in good populous areas, which I think is where we're gonna get the best, response. So, I'm good.
We haven't had any, complaints, we had the same ones open the last time, right?
Right. We've had the same ones open the last election. We would be adding Genesis
Yeah.
for this one.
We did have complaints about not opening Genesis.
That's the only one.
Yeah. So we're adding that one in this time.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion on that as well.
I'll move that we, accept these, 8.
As presented.
As presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. let's go with that. Thank you for looking through those. Okay, next one is Springdale, Jennifer.
So the next one is Springdale. So, the locations we discussed were St. Joseph, in Tawnytown, Oak Grove Baptist Church, First Church of the Nazarene, Elmdale Baptist Church, the Springdale Civic Center, Nob Hill Fire Station, and then we'd also discussed Archer Learning Center, since it is kind of in the heart of Springdale. I actually was able to speak to Dr. Davis today, and they are willing to be open for the school election as well. The Moose Lodge is in Benton County.
So it's really irrelevant for us.
But that is, their plan is to open the Moose Lodge in Benton County. So it would be a total of 7 polling locations that Washington County would be opening for the Springdale School District, on our side of it.
School district's good with it?
The school district, yes, they didn't have any issues with it. I have been emailing back and forth with Kelly Hayes, so.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Sorry, y'all.
Great maps, Jennifer.
Yeah, those are very helpful. All right, sign notice of election for the annual school election.
So the notice of election basically is everything that we intend to do for this election. So it will list all of the early and absentee voting locations along with those candidates. It lists the hours of early vote. It lists the election day sites. I have also included on our notice the Springdale site that will be open in Benton County as well, just for more information. I have included the millage information for the Elkins School District and the millage information for the Springdale School District as well, since those are being restructured, along with the precincts for Elkins, Farmington, and Springdale. And the reason I've included the precincts is because of the precinct splits. So for instance, some people who have a Fayetteville address, they may actually be in the Springdale School District. Or some people with Fayetteville may be in the Farmington School District or the Greenland School District. So for those voters who are eligible to vote, at least we've listed the precincts. Voter View is the best way for you to know for sure which school district you're in. But at least we've put the information in the notice, and we'll include all that information on our website as well.
And that has to go in the newspaper.
And this will go in the newspaper as well. This also includes when we will post the poll workers, and we will start canvassing. I have 1 day of canvassing on the Thursday before the election. I suspect we'll have a handful of absentee ballots for the school election, but the big bulk of the canvassing, we would do election day that evening, so those hours are included in this. I sent a copy of this to you.
Yeah, I was thinking, is that what
That's the
you
one you
sent?
That's what I
Yeah.
sent you, so, because it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
This would be the one for you to sign. Basically, all this information we'll post on our website, and I will coordinate with Benton County as well to make sure that they publish, and she typically does, her notice of election the same day we publish our notice of election.
Oh, good.
So that they're in the paper at the same time, because Siloam Springs, we also have part of the Siloam Springs School District in Washington County. It's just 2 tiny, tiny little portions of a precinct. But it's important for voters to know where to go. And so I'll coordinate with Kim and make sure we publish our notices on the same day.
All right, so we're only having 1 week of early voting, correct?
Yes, the law only allows for 1 week of
Yeah.
early voting for a special or for a school election.
Okay.
And it will be here at the courthouse in
Oh, yeah.
Becky's office.
Okay. Okay.
And then, like I said, I'll get all of this posted online as quickly as I can, along with the sample ballots. I'm not sure when voter view will be up and ready for me to post a voter view, because we have an election going on.
Right.
So as soon as that's available, I'll make sure I post it to voter view as well.
Okay. All right, next item, sign the notice of poll workers for the April 13th election, City of Elton.
So we're switching elections. So this is the requirement for us to post the staff in the county clerk's office, since they will be conducting early voting, and our election staff, the commissioners, and the poll workers who would be working at the Elkins Community Center. And so this will be posted on Monday in Becky's office, and it will stay posted for 10 days, and that's the time frame in which someone could make a complaint, or not a complaint, but if they have an issue with any people that are working, they can file a complaint at that point. Our first notice of election with this information will be published in the paper on Sunday. And so that way people, they will actually be able to see it in the paper. That is a bill that's being voted on today, right? That actually cleans up
changes it.
those timeframes. Currently the law, actually, the required publication date for a notice of election is after the period where you could make a complaint.
Right.
So they're cleaning that up, and that bill, I think, is being voted on today.
And I think it has a good chance of passing.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean,
Sure.
it should have been done when they made that requirement, but I think they, the law is just in so many different places that sometimes it's hard to catch the different areas.
Okay. We're just signing our lives away.
I know, that's why, it looks like it's like a giant agenda, but it's really, you're buying a house today.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
so
like
there's
sign
not
here,
nearly as
sign
much
here.
paper.
This is not even close.
Oh, boy. All right, signed certification for logic and accuracy for the City of Elkins, April 13th election.
So this is the testing that we do for the election. We've tested both the absentee ballots, we test the express vote ballots, we test the machines that are going out on election day, we test the poll books to make sure it pulls up the correct ballot, although there's only one precinct for this election, so
That's good news.
it's really straightforward. So we've tested all the voting equipment, everything counts correctly. We keep verification of all of that, so if someone wants to review or see what we did for logic and accuracy. And then, of course, this is filed with the county clerk's office to show that we have completed the logic and accuracy for this election.
Okay.
And it just needs one signature, but we test so first we run a zero, and then we test it, we run the sticks in, we do one for the DS200 for early vote absentees, early vote express vote, and then election day express vote. So those are the three different ones that are in there.
Take a look at that. All right, and then we're getting into the June election.
This saves the city's money, because I will split this bill out
Oh, that's
between the
true,
three
yeah.
cities,
Yeah.
or the three different elections.
Entities,
So,
yeah.
so
Oh,
we
that's
do
funny.
that, so, yeah.
Okay. We have the ballot for the Tonytown special election, which is on bonds. And this looks a little bit more involved. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions.
So,
Is this what the
We don't need
paper
to
ballot's
sign
gonna look like?
yeah,
Okay,
you're right.
interesting.
yeah.
Have we ever done one across like that?
Yeah, we did the Elkins one across that
Oh.
way too.
Oh,
You don't have
okay.
a copy of the Elkins
Oh,
one.
okay.
So we do the school, it depends on the layout of the
Mhm,
ballot,
mhm.
which looks better.
This looks really clean.
So for the school election, we do the one column because of the candidates' names would look weird with it
Yeah.
spread out all over.
Yeah.
But for issues when we just have the space, we try and think about if a voter is looking at the ballot,
Right.
a clean ballot,
Right, yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that's what the paper ballot will look like.
Good.
And we have sent this over to the bond council for their approval as well, because we just cut and paste.
Yeah.
And put it in there, so we are not retyping. I would not want to
No,
be responsible
no,
for
no, no.
retyping all of this and making sure the numbers are correct. But we do review it, and then we send it over to the bond council for their approval. And so they have sent back their approval for the ballot as well.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve this ballot as we see it in front of us.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Proceed. Now, sign the notice. Now that we've approved it.
So this will be for,
June the 8th.
June the 8th, St. Joseph's Catholic Church is the polling location that we have
Okay.
open in the city of Tawnytown. It's the only polling location we
Right,
have in
right.
Tawnytown. This includes everything that the voters will be voting on, the dates for early vote, and all of the basic information about when we'll count and everything.
Okay. Is there voting up in the?
They'll be voting
clerk's
always in the,
office?
yeah, in the
Okay.
clerk's office. And then, we'll get this posted to our website as well.
Wow. There you go, Mr. Jim.
And we've confirmed, with St. Joseph's that they'll be available for this election
Oh, okay,
as well.
all right. Are we doing early vote on this one?
Yes,
Okay.
just in the clerk,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right. Legislative update. Anyone?
So the only bills I brought in today are the bills that, that we're kind of keeping a close eye on and that we
Okay.
still have questions about, or that actually need amended, for those.
Okay,
And so that's what I have for you today.
okay, you have any
So,
particular
got it.
comments other than what you've highlighted here?
So on House Bill 1615, that's the one that would require if a polling place was closed by a majority of the election commissioners, that the SBEC would have to make that approval 60 days before the election, and it would have to be a unanimous decision by the SBEC. So
If we wanted to close any locations,
Wow.
we'd have to get approval
It's-
60 days ahead of time from the SBC.
We don't
And
even.
they would have to unanimously approve it as well.
We don't even decide sometimes until shortly before 30.
Right, and so that's a big problem with the bill, but it says majority vote. So technically you
Of the
can't,
SBC?
of the CBEC, of
Oh,
the
that's what
county.
they're trying to change.
Wait a minute.
No, that's the language they're adding. They're adding that if a majority vote closes a polling location, then it would have to get approval from the SBEC. However, I don't think you can close a polling location without a unanimous
That's what I-
vote.
That's what I thought.
So my question is, was this bill written in to try and prevent if only two commissioners were at a meeting
Oh.
and the two commissioners voted, even though that would be unanimous because two commissioners were there,
Right,
because that is a quorum.
right.
So the language isn't clear.
We've never operated that way.
We've never operated that way, but another
Wow.
county did operate that way and did close a
Thank
polling
you very
location. Did close a polling location with only two commissioners
Oh,
present,
my goodness.
and then did proceed to get sued after the fact of closing that polling location. and they reopened that polling location after the fact.
Okay.
After
After the election?
No, before the election.
Oh, okay.
But, or I think it went through the primary with it closed, and then before the
Oh,
general,
gotcha.
it was
Okay.
back open. So,
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know if that was the intent of the language, or if the language is intended to mean even if it's a unanimous vote,
You still need the SBEC.
the SBEC has to make that approval. I don't think that the SBEC should be put in the position of having to approve local decisions for the election commission.
No, they don't. They
So
don't know,
that would be ridiculous. So this is
I concur, they don't have the knowledge that we do of.
Exactly.
Elections in Arkansas are run at the county level, and
Right,
that's,
right.
that's the way it should be.
Yes, without their, I mean, they just, they can't supervise 75 counties on the number of polling places.
They don't know where these polling locations are, they don't have knowledge of, the knowledge we have.
Right,
To establish and close a new polling location.
Wow.
So that is, yes, so that is the main problem with this bill.
Oh, that tiny problem, I guess.
Some of the other counties have expressed concern over the fact that it would also require a polling location in all towns of that county. Some of the counties that have gone to vote centers, when you have like a really, really small town, let's say for instance, if Winslow here, because Winslow's a pretty small town, they have had to close the polling location in that town because of lack of space for a location and lack of Wi-Fi capability because they went to vote centers. And of course, they visited with that town about the fact they're closing it, but another voting location was going to be open close to it. But this would force some of those counties to go back possibly to doing precinct polling sites instead of vote centers.
Wow.
If you had to have one in every town.
That would be a terrible result.
So that, I know some of the counties have expressed concerns about that, as well as the majority having to get permission from the SBEC. So definitely, I think this is one that hopefully maybe won't even run, but I don't know for sure. It looks like it only has one sponsor and then a sponsor on the Senate side, so it's not one of the bills that came out that had a lot of sponsors on it. But that definitely is one to spread the word on for that one.
Yeah, for sure.
And then SB 496 is actually on the state agency floor today. It does need to be amended, but I have not seen an amendment filed for it yet. And I think this was just an error on the part of when the bill was written. The language it uses, it says the general primary would be the date for special elections. This is the one that combines special elections into 4 times a year.
Okay.
And this is also the preferred bill if we're gonna consolidate elections. This is the preferred bill. But the language in the current bill says that special elections would be held in the month of the general primary. It needs to read preferential primary because the general primary is the runoff. And you can't hold a special election with the runoff because the time frame of holding special elections is not the same as a runoff, because runoffs are held 4 weeks afterwards, and it doesn't give you time to add a special election onto the runoff. I do think that that is just a mistake on when the author had the bill written, because that language in and of itself should be changed. And so if that's the fact, there's another part of the bill that needs to be amended. And then this bill does not include volunteer fire departments, as the other consolidation bills included volunteer fire departments. So this would limit volunteer fire departments to only having 2 options, either at the beginning of the year or with the
The gender.
a preferential primary.
Oh,
I think if you're gonna consolidate, you should let the fire districts have the option to have it the 4 times a year,
right.
rather than just
Restrict.
limiting them to 2. And we really don't want the fire district elections to be held with, the preferential primary, because fire districts, their precincts don't match any
Oh,
precincts we
yeah.
have, and we
You
have to
do it for
create.
all 3 ballots.
And,
Wow.
and you create all the special precincts. So really, this one allows an election to be held in August, which that would be the preferred date for a fire district if going forward.
That changes that other statute.
It would
the fire
change if it's
district.
included, yes. And the other consolidation bills included the fire district. This one left it out. So I think, you know, like I said, it's on the state agency's calendar today,
Okay, yeah,
but I didn't see where an amendment had been filed, but that doesn't mean that they might not do it
right.
in committee. So, so that's our concern with that one. House Bill 1715. So this one, changed the absentee process. This one is one of the bills that was filed that has a lot of support behind it
Right,
already.
yeah.
A lot of people have signed on as sponsors. Some of the items in it are kind of administrative things, adding to the clerk's responsibilities. For one, she would have to submit a list of absentee applications received daily to the County Board of Election Commissioners. She could compile that into a week report, but it would have to be broken down each day. This is how many applications that the clerk received. I'm not sure why, you know, what is driving
What's the point of that?
that need, for that. It would also create a uniform voter statement approved by the SBEC. If that does happen, we want to make sure that we have as much comment and, say in that voter statement, because what we've seen, not necessarily from the SBEC, but from the SOS's office, is not exactly voter friendly, and we always add more to ours to try and make it more voter friendly. It does not allow the county clerk access to absentee ballots after canvassing has started, unless the county board gives them permission. I'm not sure why this is. Sometimes we've had to take voter statements or applications up to the clerk's office to say, can you read this, or can, you know, what
happened with this
exactly.
person who filled out the absentee
Right.
ballot?
So, you know, I'm not sure on those. The one thing it does change that concerns me about processing the canvassing, and the law has been this way for as long as we've canvassed ballots. When a voter returns their voter statement, it is not supposed to be in the ballot-only envelope, along with their ID. Occasionally, voters will just put everything inside the ballot-only envelope and send it back to us. So 2 clerks have always been able to open up the ballot-only envelope, find the voter statement, the ID, make sure the ballot stays in the ballot-only envelope, and then continue processing. So that's the way the process has always been.
Two poll workers?
Or 2 canvassers, but it's two, then they always work as teams. You never work, you never work
You said
alone.
clerk, so we just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
Yeah.
This would, if we didn't find the voter statement or their ID in the outer envelope, we're not allowed to open up the ballot-only envelope until Election Day. So all of those ballots we could have been canvassing have to be set aside, and for us to wait until Election Day to canvass.
Is there a sense of what kind of percentage that represents of those ballots?
It's at least 10 to 20%.
Wow, that high?
They tend to put, I mean, even when we do a small election, we end up having to open up, you know, we've got 10 ballots, sometimes we have to open up 1 or 2 of them to find the voter statement and the voter ID. So it does, I mean,
Voters probably think, this is a secure envelope.
Exactly,
I'm
and that's
putting
why
my ballot
yeah.
and my information in here, you know,
That's
my
right.
driver's license, whatever. I
the
see how they,
instructions say completely differently, but,
yeah.
so, I mean, and I don't know, like I said, we know what we do in Washington County and how we
Right,
handle
right.
it.
yeah.
If there were other counties that were having an issue with this, I don't know. What we've done for this election in particular for the general is any time that a ballot had to be opened, they cut it open, found the materials, and then they sealed it back with tape and made
Right.
note, opened, and then they initialed the ballot, that the fact that they had to do that.
And that, I think, is a straightforward but simple process, that helps the voter in the long run.
I agree, and lessens our administrative burden on election day when we
True.
have
True.
a dozen other things we're doing
Mhm.
related to absentee ballots.
Yeah.
Right, because we can't open those and start counting until election day. So this means we'll have, in addition to opening the ones and pulling out the ballots, we now have these that need to be finished canvassed.
So, yeah, it's straightforward, and it's helpful to the voter, it's helpful to us if it's done correctly, but we've got a demonstrated experience that up to 20% of the time it's not done correctly
By the voters.
by the
Yes.
voters. So is there a way to help ensure that the voter gets it right?
No. Simple answer, no.
There, I mean, yes, so we have tried, we send a checklist, like, step one, do this, mark it off, step two,
Yeah.
do this,
Yeah.
mark it off. We've made our voter statement much more detailed about what to do and how to do the process. In fact, even on the ballot, we've put the information on the ballot, because the paper ballots, that the ballot goes in the ballot-only envelope.
Right.
Short of going through and stamping the ballot-only envelope and saying, don't put your voter statement or your ID in here,
Right.
I don't know if we could
How does the
prevent it.
voter statement and the ID, what are they, I mean, I know what an ID looks like, it'd be like a picture of their,
Driver's license.
what is the voter where does it come from?
It comes from the county clerk's office, and it is included with their ballot, the ballot-only envelope, and,
So it comes
their
as part of
return
the
envelope.
package?
It comes part of the packet.
And it's okay.
So, I don't know I don't know how to prevent it 100%,
Oh, I don't think you do anything 100%. But if it was
how to
less than
get it-
5%, I would say, forget about it.
Yeah, how to get it lower, but I feel like we have to open up enough, especially, now I will tell you, one of the reasons we probably opened up more than we've opened in the previous years was because if the voter didn't include ID, we needed to
And it may
look
have
for
not
that.
been in either place.
Exactly, but we needed to look for that ID
Yeah.
in order to be able to determine whether that ballot could count because they had signed the optional verification, or if the voter needed to be put on the list to receive a letter to come in and show their ID. So that's one of the main reasons that when they didn't find the ID, they would open that up to look for them. This would prevent us from doing that, and potentially, because if we're canvassing a lot of absentee ballots, and if we wanted to send out letters early to the voters to let them know, hey, you didn't include your ID, you can come to the clerk's office by the Monday after the election, we couldn't even process those and make lists of those until election day, which would technically be the day after the election. So administratively, I feel like it does kind of put us in a bind in letting the voters know we did or did not find their ID, did or did not find their voter statement, those type of things.
Well, it seems like it also, if it's gonna dictate the exact voter statement from the SBEC, and we don't have the ability to change our statement to make it clearer to the voter to do some of these things. Seems like that could even exacerbate the problem a little bit more if the state doesn't draft it in a way that's easy for the voter to read and tries to really explain the details.
Right.
Well, you might
Well-
add more detail and become more confusing to a lot of people.
That's the problem that I see, is so,
Depends, I agree. Some of the materials the state put out are not the easiest things.
Maybe that some could be changed to most.
well, and in fact, we have, worked with the SBEC on occasion to adjust their form,
Yeah,
shall we say.
and they have even borrowed our forms
Exactly.
on many occasions.
Exactly. But I think one of the biggest problems, and I would say this across the board on a lot of legislation, is the more you begin adding details and making that, I mean, it's big enough now. What is it, 15 by 17 or 19?
That's the provisional ballot
Oh,
envelope.
okay.
But
But the other one-
statement is a legal size.
Okay, yeah, okay. But, yeah, that's right, because we get the other ones, okay. But, you start adding to that, and the problem is, people don't read. And they're not, you put a checklist in, but people don't always go with that checklist. So it's, I mean, you know, they'll say they tried, but, you know, they might read the first word and the middle word and the last word. And that ain't enough to get it done. So,
And the idea is to keep the ballot in the ballot only envelope,
Right.
and no one is looking at the ballot. I understand completely that that's the goal, but, you know, I don't know if this, I feel like this will hurt us in some aspects because it will slow us down a little bit on election day with the canvassing and then getting letters out to the voters to let them know that your absentee ballot was missing an ID will hurt us on that aspect of it.
well, essentially that's hurting the voter.
Right. You know, and like I said, I had put in my notes, we actually had a voter who photocopied his ID onto the ballot, so this,
They're trying.
Don't know.
They're trying.
They're trying.
What you're gonna get.
And I think that's part of it, is that we're also trying to help the voters so that the votes count.
Yep.
But that doesn't always happen because of these kind of errors, and if we can't fix them before Election Day, it's gonna be hard to do after Election Day.
Yeah. So, because one of the things I think that we need to discuss, before, like, the big primary and the general is when do we notify voters during the absentee process if they didn't submit ID? Like, you know, do we wait until the Thursday, or if as we're processing them and we're making a list and we know they don't have ID, can we go ahead and be sending out letters to them to let them know that you have to come in to Monday?
They won't be able to sign.
Right.
So would that be, rather than have the ability to open the ballot on the envelope and look for it, is that the response you would have if you couldn't do that, was you just let them know that their ID wasn't in there?
Possibly, if we let them know, but their ID might be in
Yeah,
there
right
and
in
then
the envelope.
But they put it in the wrong place.
that they put it in the wrong place.
We should, if this passes, we should examine, I'm all for trying to cut down on errors by the
Right.
voter. We should examine our whole process.
I agree with that.
Just see if we can, you know, clarify the language you put on the ballot only envelope, or, I don't know, whatever. Just look at our whole process to try to prevent some of those errors.
Now, we are fortunate that our county clerk works with us.
Right,
Because
right.
technically, that part of it is the domain of the county clerk. And she has ordered, I have boxes of ballot-only envelopes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they can be run back through a press.
They can, and so that'll be a cost that we can do, but I do think that if this does pass, I do think it is worthwhile to think about putting on the ballot-only envelope. Don't put your voter statement in here.
Right.
Don't put your ID
Put it in red.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think that that's something we'll have to look at, so yeah.
Well, this is the one you said is on the,
This one hasn't been
Oh, okay.
run through committee yet.
That's not it.
So
Okay.
there's time to amend it.
Mhm.
It does define that we are to compare the voter statement and the absentee application, because that, you know, what are we defining?
right.
But it does not, this is my one issue with this too, is it doesn't extend our time to canvass absentee ballots for a general and a primary for the 2 weeks. We're back to 1
Okay.
week now, because that was an executive order.
Executive order, yes.
If we think that we're gonna have more absentee ballots, and we have to organize them in a different way, like we can't look inside these, and we have to do things a little differently, we're just only have the 1 week. So I do think that this needs to be amended to allow us to canvass absentee ballots the first day of early vote. That's a simple fix,
Oh,
because
that would
for a
be good.
special election, it's 1 week, because
Right.
that's all you need for a special election. For a general or a primary, it gives you 2 weeks, because you've got 15 days of early voting.
And the thing about that is, you don't have to use the 2 weeks
You don't.
if you don't need it.
You don't, but it gives you the opportunity to have 2
Yeah.
weeks to do it.
Mhm.
And then it has in here about the canceled ballots, which I feel like this part is micromanaging what we do at the polls on
Yeah.
election day.
Yeah.
Because basically, anytime, we wanted to see what it would do, but anytime that a spoiled ballot happens on election day, then it's reissued to the voter.
Right.
And they re-vote. So we just write canceled on it, and there's a form you fill out, and the voter signs, and we do all of that. This actually requires us to stamp it. So I'm not sure what, why
Yeah.
stamp it? Because it's thermal paper, it'll smear pretty
Sure,
easily. I don't have any issues wanting them necessarily to have the voter put their signature and the date and the time, but to make us buy stamps, and then you'll need at least 2 to 3 stamps if it's a big site. That's just another thing for our poll workers to keep
Right.
up with.
And another thing for us to make sure is that all 49 sites every single election day.
Yeah, and
Right,
it's gonna be
yeah.
$1,200 for us to provide the stamps for all of
Oh,
our
wow.
locations. So
That
that's,
is micromanaging. They should, if they want to put stamps on there, they should put it in there, and they should say alternately get a signature.
yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, so I'm not sure what,
It's got to be an indication of something that went on in another county and they're trying to fix. So
Right.
they're gonna fix it for everybody.
yeah. And
Sure.
so that, I think, needs to be amended. You could put stamp or write.
Yeah.
And if we're fixing it, we should fix it to where you write spoiled, because they're spoiled ballots, but we call them
Mhm.
canceled, is what they're supposed to write. I've never understood that. It's been that way since I've been here, and I've
Canceled.
never understood, so, but
Oh,
yeah.
boy. Okay.
So that is with that one. And then SB 488, this one is on the agenda today as well. This one would allow ballots to be photocopied after certification, like the actual ballots.
Don't we have in the flash drives, isn't there supposed to be a picture of each
So
ballot?
we don't,
Or maybe it's on the DS-200.
it's the DS-200.
Okay.
But we don't save copies of the ballots unless it's a write-in, because we had issues with it kind of overloading,
Mhm.
and so we don't do the saved,
Okay.
saved copies. But this isn't what this is implying. This is saying
Really?
that someone could come in and make copies. So this one,
So of all the ballots in an election,
Voted ballots, copy for.
Well, now that's kind of an interesting thing, because if you're talking a large election, where are they gonna copy this stuff?
I'm assuming our office and on my copier.
Yeah.
Wow.
unless it's specified.
Yeah, well, but I mean, honestly,
But then they would
think
have
there's
to-
a
You would have
logistics
to
there.
go, yeah.
Bring
you would
their,
have to
because they
authorize-
can't remove the
No.
ballots, so they'd have to bring in their own copy machine and copy them all on premises.
Yeah, it simply says voted ballots for copying purposes.
Wow.
But
done in other
Certification
counties?
of election.
no, it's not done anywhere, because there's another law, 7-5-702, that says that ballots are to be sealed and stored
Right.
and not opened unless ordered by the court, or if you're part of the, when they're going to audit.
Oh, right.
And then the
Okay.
SBEC
Okay.
comes in and does
And
it.
they do it.
So these two conflict, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but this one has a lot of sponsors on it as well.
Well, here's my question, okay? We do have the capability already on the DS-200 to have the pictures, even though you said it overloads.
So, I have,
Would that suffice?
well, I don't know, because that's not the wording of this bill, because it says voted ballots to
Right.
be copied.
Right.
I also don't like necessarily the images of the
Mhm.
DS-200, of it
Right,
keeping
right.
the ballots, because it's taking them as the people vote.
Oh, okay, so you think
Oh.
there's a way to connect
match
the
it up.
two? Oh,
I see.
okay.
So I don't
We
like,
have the hard physical ballots anyway.
right,
Yeah, right.
So
Right.
if we have it.
and so, yeah. So I don't
there.
think that's the solution that you want,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
I was just thinking in terms of, you know, how we made the adjustment, I guess it was, from, what was the deal? Having everything printed out in a folder to having it on, an iPad, so that people could look at it, but it wouldn't take up space, it wouldn't have to be printed every
Right,
time.
but these are the voted ballots.
These are the voted ones.
These are like how people, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I'm with you, I don't see, there's no way you'd wanna allow a citizen to come in and, view those records, if you indeed did keep them in a file, the visible records.
And I
Or
guess,
provide them with a file
well,
from those.
and I'm just wondering too, like, what is the purpose of
Yeah.
seeing, the
Right.
ballots? Because, and which ballots are you looking at, and how do we keep them
Mhm.
organized? And where do we store 60,000 ballots for people to have access?
There's already
to-
processes for recount under the law. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
if
So-
somebody wants to request a recount on the ballots, and observe the entire process, I mean, there are statutory provisions they can do that.
That's true, yeah.
And the SBEC's audit,
The
You know,
SBC,
that's
they did
another
the audit and
verification.
everything. You know, if there is concern about the ballot, I think your better solution would be to require each county to do an audit. It's like, so I always look at these bills and I'm like, so what's the intent of the bill?
Exactly, yes.
You know, what are we accomplishing with the
Mhm.
bill? And so is the bill to allow citizens to know that everything counted the way it was supposed to count? Just by photocopying ballots, that proves nothing.
Right.
I mean, because basically, you're gonna come in and you're gonna say, I'd like to see the ballots from, St. Joseph's,
Now,
for
this is-
instance,
this
and
is
copy
just-
them.
This is just all the ballots that are absentee, right?
No, this is,
Oh, wait,
it
I'm looking at the
yeah,
wrong one.
it just says voted ballots for copying purposes.
Okay, here it is, 488.
How long do we keep ballots?
So we keep ballots for 2 years after the election.
Okay.
And so, but we're required to seal them and not
For that
open
period of
them.
time.
Mhm. And this would have us 30 days after the certification, breaking seals for 30 days for people to come in and
Is there a
make
way
copies.
is there a way to store them in sealed containers or something, or to store them for 30 days before they're sealed, or, I mean, just...
No, you don't want that to happen.
Okay, just...
You want them sealed immediately after we've
Okay.
after we've certified.
completed.
I mean,
I'm not trying to make this work, I'm just trying to figure out...
Yeah.
no, and that's my thinking too, is like, how would we store it, and how would you organize it in such a way that people could come in and make a reasonable request to have something copied? And so, you know, we can keep them in our office for 30 days, and we can keep them in some type of container that you could easily open and close. And logistically, I was trying to think, okay, if we had to do this, what would be the process?
Yeah.
You'd basically have to, I think, have someone, you'd have to seal it, and then when the seal's broken, have a poll worker or, you know.
Certain protocol that had to be
that-
followed.
Exactly, that they signed that they broke the seal this day, this is the person who came in to view it, these are what they copied, and then you seal it back up and record that was, you'd have to keep track somehow of how often you did it and which boxes you got into.
There'd be a
and all
protocol
of that.
for managing that, for
Yeah,
opening,
yeah.
and
Now,
resealing.
according
and
to
that
the title, it's a FOIA thing.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I guess I'm looking at this and saying, on the basis of the title, it seems to me they're saying this is a good thing, but there's not do we ever have people FOIA the ballots?
Because they're a secret ballot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole idea, like, the idea is, like, when you vote and it goes into that blue box.
Right.
Basically, that blue box is pulled out of the DS-200 and sealed election night and brought back to the courthouse. We only open that if we need to do a recount.
Right.
And a recount has been requested. They are to stay in that box until we certify, and then we put them in their packaging and we seal them up. So we don't handle the ballot, you know,
Yeah.
so we've never really handled the ballots other than just like when you have to.
Right.
So, and the law's always, you know, kind of dictated, you know, what's to be preserved and who can open it, and when it can be opened. So this would, granted, it's after certification, so the certification's already happened
Yeah.
and everybody's already won, and it's too late for anybody to file for anything, to challenge anything.
Right.
So I guess the idea is to let people study it. I don't know. I am thinking that it's more for someone to know that I said I had 100 votes for candidate A, and I can come in and look at the ballots, and I can verify for myself that when I photocopied these ballots, I can add that there were 100 votes for candidate A.
But that, I don't know, that just seems
That's why I'm thinking,
silly.
if that is the goal of this bill, it would almost be better for it to actually require each county to do an audit.
Yeah.
A random audit of, you know, just like the state did,
or whatever.
percentage of places, and you go through after the election's been certified, and you do a public, it's basically you do it in public.
Right.
and you pull out those ballots and you show that the tape says that there are 100 votes for candidate A, and the ballots prove that there's 100 votes for candidate A.
We could guess all day at what the goal is
But,
here,
yeah.
because they didn't say, but I think that might be a good question for somebody to ask. What are
Right,
you trying to
yeah.
accomplish?
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially with so many sponsors.
I mean, it has so many sponsors.
Yeah.
And
And that's what makes me curious about it.
yeah, and that does me too. So, and if these bills pass, this one, and then the other one about the absentees, our budget will have to be increased to have the staff on hand to
Wow.
be able to organize this and
Yeah,
make available and, you know.
Well,
so-
and that's one of the things, every time, there's a legislative session, we find we've got new things that
Yeah.
we're gonna have to match up to.
No more
Meetings.
Yeah.
April 13th, April 16th or 23rd. You guys can read these for yourselves, but, anything you wanna highlight of the dates?
No, some of them I don't have times, we can
Okay.
determine
Yeah,
what
we can do
times. But, these are all the kind of based on things we have to sign, things, you know, by law we have to do,
Right.
would be the required meetings. We need to add a meeting in here for budget.
Yeah, okay.
The finance committee, they are wanting our budgets by July.
By July.
So we will need to, have a couple of meetings to go over our budget, and some purchasing requests that I think we need to make to the quorum court as well.
Oh, we need to make those to the quorum court?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And not as part of our budget, or?
No, this would be, for it, to talk about voting equipment,
Right,
the tablet.
right.
We'll need to make a we'll need to make a request to the quorum court.
And we need to probably do that fairly soon.
Yes.
We need to have a meeting to discuss that separately, because that's, I mean, you're gonna get the figures and whatever. But, that's you wanna do that before the Elkins?
Yeah, I'll
Election
try and
time,
have
right?
everything before the Elkins
Okay.
or,
Sooner the better if we can figure it
Yeah.
out. Why not get it done, you know?
Yeah.
While we've got the time.
Well, let's think about that. She's gonna have to get some numbers together and so forth, but, you have a date in mind?
let's see, next week's spring break. You know, probably, if we wanted to meet, like maybe like April 6th or something,
Yeah.
would that work?
Tuesday? April 6th.
Probably.
Okay. Are we doing 1 o'clock, or, Jim, you're not available in the mornings at all, is that correct?
That is not the case. I said I could be, it's better for me to do the afternoon, because
Okay.
what I end up doing is breaking up my work that I need to get done.
Yeah.
And so if it's not, I mean, I also said 10 o'clock would be better than 9 o'clock for me,
Oh,
if we did more.
well, 10 o'clock, you,
But
10
that-
o'clock
I don't know. It all breaks up my day, so I don't know if it really matters.
okay.
But I can do 9 o'clock if that's what we need to do. I'd rather do later if possible.
Okay. What do you
Renee, well, I was gonna say, is the 1 o'clock harder for you, or would 3 o'clock be harder for you? I mean,
I don't know, what does 3 o'clock look like for you, Max?
Fine, I could do that.
Let's just go with 3 then. I don't mind, I mean, my life is so crazy anymore. It doesn't much matter. We'll do 3 on April the 6th. Does that work for you, Jim?
Sure.
Okay. All right, quickly, other business. Anybody got any?
I don't think so.
Okay. Jim? Anything? Okay, well, let's, adjourn, and our next meeting will be April the 6th at 3 p.m.
Okay.
Perfect. Whew. We got through all of that in an hour. Or not.
It looks like a lot.